Hi, I'm Marnie Cohen,
And I'm Marley Singer.
and we are doing a documentary on the novella The Stranger by Albert Camus. This is a novel that goes through the life of the main character, Marcel. We saw the different paths he took going through life that are against society and what is known as normal.
Although the experiences he has may seem normal, like the death of his mother or a proposal for marriage from his former coworker that he loved, his reactions to these events and the behavior that he portrayed was definitely not what society would call normal. In the novella, Albert Camus uses the theme of alienation to show how Marceau's rejection from his society has empowered him to find the meaning of his own life.
We decided to ask one student and one English teacher from our high school their opinions on the novella, and here's what they said.
I'm Josh Cabot. I'm chair of English at Roslyn Public Schools.
I'm Rachel Zubley. I'm a student at Roslyn High School.
When I read it in high school, I didn't quite get it.
As Mr. Cabot just mentioned, this book isn't easy to understand. From our point of view as well, it wasn't simple. Although the language was not hard to grasp, you really had to dig deep to fully appreciate the true meaning.
I think it's just in its own small, nasty little way, just a brilliant book.
I didn't enjoy reading it at first, but after going over it in class with Mr. Vogt, I started to appreciate the concept and the theme of the book.
The main protagonist, Marcel, has very abnormal reactions to situations that he encounters in his life. Marcel is characterized as strange and abnormal because what is normal to society is a person with feelings and care in the world. Marcel can't seem to talk about his feelings and seems very indifferent about every situation life throws at him.
Meursault is a true existentialist. He's someone who seemed, to the outside world might look like, depressed or something like that, but he's not depressed. He sees the truth and accepts the truth. And one of the fundamental questions of philosophy is, would you rather live the beautiful lie or the ugly truth? And the heart of existentialism for Camus, for Sartre and the other philosophers, and for Meursault, is that they'd rather live the ugly truth.
I hope I don't relate to his character, and I don't think many people do, and I feel like that's kind of the point of the book, is that you're not really supposed to relate to him. I feel like, just in general, that he seems to follow absurdist philosophy and how he believes that there's no meaning to the universe and no order, and I don't believe that.
Marceau finally reaches his threshold. He understands his own feelings and views. He realizes how his events in life have influenced his behavior. After committing such a terrible crime, Marceau finally makes sense of his new life and the way he's forced to live it.
In the end, I think existentialism is an optimistic philosophy because it states that we have the ability within us to find our own meaning in life rather than looking for it in old documents and old books and old works. I think Meursault himself is a stranger, and I believe étranger which is the French word, is also the word for foreigner. I'm pretty sure, which is an interesting thing. He is a stranger in that he is an ugly truth person in a world filled with people who would much rather live the beautiful lie. Camus, although French, was born and raised in Tunisia, so maybe he's the stranger, the white man in a Muslim country. Or maybe it's a whole commentary on, what are the Europeans doing there? Why are they there? This is, written long before they gave all the African countries their independence. So I think stranger has a personal meaning, but it also has a political meaning as well. But what I love about The Stranger is the end when he's in prison and he talks about how if you really paid attention to life, you would have enough experiences and impressions in one day to last you 100 years in prison. And Camus' point being, I think that most of us spend our lives kind of just like sleepwalking through life and not really observing, not really living life in the moment that we're in. So to me, that's also for a very what seems like a very negative book. That's a very sort of positive and reaffirming message. It really is a modernist work of fiction in the sense that, for most of the history of Western fiction, there was a narrator who told you the story, and that was it. But, life is a little more complicated than that. And so, sort of jumping back and forth between perspectives is a very mid-20th century thing. It's a very modern kind of idea, and much closer to the way the world actually works than most literature is. Second of all, for students going to college, I wouldn't have freshmen read The Stranger, but seniors, when you're going to find out that a lot of the truths that you think are absolute truths are often largely a matter of your own perspective, and you're going to start to meet people with other perspectives, and you're going to start to question that. So I think it works for you as readers on that level too.
I would recommend it. I think it's an interesting take on a very different kind of philosophy. I think that the language was pretty easy, but the concept of the book is difficult to grasp.
I've taught it about 5 or 6 times over the years, and every time I've taught it, I like it more and more.